Today, a small electrical project. Welcome, folks. What I want to do today is I'm out in the corner of the house. It's kind of dark today, it's overcast. I'm out in the corner of the house that was part of the addition that was put on. It overhung the original foundation walls by about, I think it's about 7 feet here. And I had this little area of porch that's maybe 7 by 10 here that is open. It's a nice little space for getting out of the sun, but if you still want to sit outside, it still needs a lot of work, of course, but that was the plan, to make a little seating area here. So what I want to do is I want to put a light fixture out here. There hasn't been one, and of course at night then it's dark, and then this section of the yard as well is dark at night, so I figured putting a light fixture in here would change that. Now what is on the ceiling here is just the 7/16 OSB. I just did that to cover it up. Above that are 2 by 12 floor joists for the room that's above there, and it's filled with what is it, R32, whatever the 8 or 9 inch insulation is, the thick stuff, so that room stays warm, because it would get pretty cold out here being the open air. Now what I did before I put the OSB on here is I ran a piece of 12-2 wire and finished it off up in there, and then ran it into the house, thinking that at some point I would put a light switch out here. So it's been up in there for a number of years. I did mark the ceiling. As you can see here, I just drilled a hole up through it. It was a 7/8 inch paddle bit to drill a hole, and I did stick my finger up there and I felt my wire, so it's right where I left it. I did mark it well, apparently. I just need to fish it down through, and then what I'm going to do is I will take this pancake box. These thin boxes are called pancake boxes. They come in 3 or 4 inch sizes. Normally this is just a 3 inch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount that on the OSB. There won't be a lot of weight to the whatever fixture I put in here. I'm not going to put a ceiling fan or anything like that. So the 7/16 will be plenty of grip for whatever I eventually put in. But I'm just going to fish the wire down through this, screw this to the ceiling, and then for right now, since this is temporary, I'm not sure what I want to finish this ceiling off with. I won't leave the OSB. I don't know if I'll put other sheeting, maybe some aluminum fascia. I'm not sure yet. It's an outdoor porch, so it'll, I want something that's kind of all season, but I haven't decided yet. So in the meantime, so I can have light, I'm just going to put one of these little porcelain fixtures up in here. Now this isn't actually porcelain anymore, it's plastic. I mean, you can still get the porcelain, but the plastic is actually cheaper. And then with a light bulb, so that'll give me the light I need. This isn't considered a wet location because I'm up underneath this roof, as you can see. Yeah, it'll get damp out here, as anything outside would, but there'll be no rain or snow or anything that's going to impact that up in there, because it's centered under this roof. So I can get away with just a regular box and a regular fixture. I don't need an outdoor light fixture that's rated for a wet location, given where this is. So what I'll do is I will run that wire down through. As I said, it's already run into the room here. That's the yellow wire there, and I will put a switch box right in this back corner. Again, this is part of the enclosed porch here on our house. It's not finished off. In fact, I have to redo the insulation in here on the walls. It's a mess. I need to redo it before the cold weather comes, but I'm trying to do this wiring before I get to that. So there'll just be a single pole light switch here, and then the second wire there, you see the white is bringing my power to it. I'm just going to tap off the receptacles on this enclosed porch. They're not overcoated to the point that they couldn't handle a couple more light fixtures, because what I also intend to do here is put a second porcelain with a light bulb out here for a light in this part of the house as well. I don't excuse me, I don't use this part of the porch that much. It's more kind of like utility. You can see some of the plumbing from one of the upstairs bathrooms is there. You can see here's my panel box that I finally got put together right. Got all the breakers in and the door on and so on. So that's been a process too, as I've added more new circuits, just keep adding to it. It's just about done, I think, as far as the house goes. But so that's in here too. It's not going to be a part of the house that's going to be used all that often, but I do need a light in there. I think what I'll probably do to make things simple on myself is just put a porcelain with a pull chain, and all I have to do is, you know, pull the rope when I want the light in here, because I don't use it that often. With the fabrication that's gone on with this house, as you can see here, this was the concrete addition that was put onto the house in the early 1900s. It's about, you can see there the span on that, that's about 8 or 9 inches thick. And then of course it had a very low threshold, so when I put a new door on here to go into my office, I actually had to put it on from the inside because the door is taller than this opening. I'd never find a door of this size to fit this opening anymore. But it worked out okay, and when I finish trimming this out, insulating and trimming it out, it won't look too bad. Again, that's what you sometimes have to do when you're doing remodeling, especially with an old farmhouse like this. I could have spent $1,000 getting a custom-made door to put on here to try to fit the opening, but that'd be silly. And I wasn't going to start breaking concrete, you know, this lintel over the top here. I wasn't going to chip out all the concrete to get a standard-sized door in the wall. So it's actually, in my office there, I framed up a 2x4 wall on the inside of the concrete, so it's better insulated, and then I just put the door on that. So that's what I'm working on now. Again, it's this is the area I'm working on. I'm not going to do this yet, but that'll be part of the remodel project, is to box all this in so that it has a finished off look to it. Again, it's just coming out onto a porch area here, nothing fancy, but I want it to be functional. So the first step with this is going to be to get this wiring done so that I have a light out here, and then of course the light out in this sitting area, so that people can you know, have light out here at night should anybody be out here, or if we need light in this part of the yard at night, that'll also help. So just wanted to walk you through that. It's not a big project, but it's been a while since I've done anything electrical as far as doing videos on it. I have been doing electric work here, but haven't done any videos on. So I thought I'd do that for this one, and just give you the basics. It's very simple wiring, nothing complicated, and I'll walk you through it. Any of you who just want to do something like this, so if you want to add an extra light fixture someplace on your house, it's not a difficult project to do. You can do it yourself. So hang in there, we'll walk you through it. Alright, first phase is completed with this. You can see I fished the wire down through the OSB panel, and I've screwed the pancake box to the ceiling. I just used 2 1-inch drywall screws. As you can see, it's good and tight. It'll hold a lot of weight. The other thing, of course, that you have to do when you have a metal box is you have to put this little green, you can see it there, little green grounding screw in to make sure that the box is grounded. Now with a porcelain fixture like this, there's no place to ground that, which is okay, but what I've done is I've left a little tail on my ground wire so that if down the road, or when down the road, I put a better fixture in here, it will have a grounding wire that I can just connect up to, but the box will still be grounded. So that's why that has to be in there. And I've cut my wire off and stripped the tips. It's about ready to go. It's going to be a little snug in there, so I got to be careful how I put the wires in. Let me just show you here with these. I keep calling them porcelain even though this is plastic because they were originally made out of porcelain. You can see here on the back they have a series of screws where you make your connection, and that of course goes into your socket here where your light bulb is to power that up. Now what you can see here is there are actually 4 screws here, so you have a chance to connect 2 sets of wires if need be. I don't need to here. This is just 1 set. But 1 set of screws is silver, the one on the right there, and the one on the left is brass, or yellow and silver, yellow and white, whatever you want to call it. But what I want to do is I want to put my white wire, my neutral wire, on the silver, and I want to put my black wire, my hot wire, on the brass. That's the standard way to wire that. So that's going to be the next step. The other thing I had to do, if you look here on these, they're designed for either a 4-inch box or a 3-inch box, and they've got these holes with slots in. The inside set, the 2 holes closest to the socket hole, those are the ones I need for this smaller 3-inch pancake box. I had to punch those out. They had just a little piece of plastic there covering them, but since I'm using a 3-inch instead of 4-inch, I had to punch them out, and then I will put longer screws than came with the pancake box to assemble this. So that's just another thing you have to do perhaps in prep, depending what size box you're using. If you're just using a standard PVC light box, probably that's a 4-inch, and then the outer screw holes that will come with it. So again, there's nothing fancy about this. It does the job in holding your light bulb and will give you the power for a light. As I said, this isn't going to be permanent, but for right now, until I do the finishing off work in here, at least I can have a light out here. So I've got to be a little careful that I strip the wires and wrap. I'm going to hook them around the screws as tight as possible, tighten them down, and hopefully I don't have a lot of other bare wire exposed, because as you can see here, there's nothing to cover over the metal parts here. Unlike other type of fixtures where you might have pigtails coming off the fixtures where you can put a wire nut on where you're making your electrical connection that's insulated, that you don't have to worry about any exposed metal. Here you don't have that option, so I just have to be a little careful when I put this up in. I got to make sure that that grounding pigtail I left, the bare wire up there that I left, doesn't come in contact with either of these, especially the hot, or it could short it out. Once they're in place, they shouldn't move because the copper's stiff enough that it shouldn't move, but you just have to be a little more careful with this type of fixture than you do with another one if you're using wire nuts. So just keep that in mind. Don't make your wire tails too long or too short. If they're too long, then you got to try to cram them in there. If they're too short, you have a hard time trying to connect your screws up safely. So this is about what I think I need. I'll try it just to make sure when I get it put up in, but I think that'll do. You can't put many wires in these little pancake boxes, but here, because I only had 1 set of wires to worry about, it was no problem. So next move, I will show you how when this is done. I won't take the time to walk you through hooking the wires on. I mean, that's fairly simple. All you do is you take your needle nose pliers and you bend like a fish hook, and then you wrap the wire clockwise around your screw, so that as you're tightening the screw down, it's pulling the wire tight too. If you wrap them counterclockwise, it would tend to want to push the wires away from the screw as you're tightening it down. So that's just another little tip to make sure your connections are secure. All right, I'll come back to you. Okay, there we go. We are finished with the outside work on this. The porcelain / plastic fixture is in place. I even put a light bulb in. Now, as I've mentioned before with videos on doing electrical wiring, you always want to work from cold to hot. So what I mean by that is you want to work to the new job that you're doing and work your way to where the power supply is. And that's exactly what I've done here. This is the end of my run. There's none of the wires are hot. I don't need to worry about that. And I'll work my way in back to the switch, and then back to the rest of the run, and then my final connection will be where the hot wires are. I'll turn the breaker off, make the connection into the hot, and then turn things back on. That way I know I'm safe. I don't need to worry that somebody will accidentally turn something on that they shouldn't. So it's just a safety precaution. Always work what they call cold to hot. Work it from the end of your run back to where your power source is and make your last connection to the power source. As you can see, I've just put a simple LED light bulb in there. That'll provide enough light for out here. I've done a lot of switching over my light bulbs in my house to LEDs, and now that the prices have come down on them. When they first came out, of course, they were prohibitively expensive, but so I waited for a while, and now they're still not quite as cheap as incandescents, of course, but the cost savings is worth it if you can get 60 watts of light for the equivalent of 60 watts of light for a bulb that takes 7 watts of electricity or 9 watts of electricity, whatever this is. That's great. I am so glad that we got LED technology to where it is. I remember a number of years ago when Obama declared war on incandescent light bulbs, and really all he was trying to do was push GE's curlicue compact fluorescent toxic bulbs that GE wanted to make billions of dollars on. So I never used one of those. I never liked them. I wasn't about to use them. So what happened was, when I started hearing, oh, they're going to ban the 100-watt bulb, they're going to ban the 75-watt bulb, etc., I had gone and bought a bunch of them, figured that'll hold me for a few years, and then we'll see what happens. So in the interim, I did use a number of them up. I still have plenty that I don't really need right now because I've switched to the LEDs. But I wasn't going to play that game with these stupid light bulbs. They were like, I don't know, was it $4 for a 2-pack or something like that, compared to 89 cents at the grocery store for a 4-pack of just regular incandescents. So you can't beat the difference. Now again, the LEDs haven't quite gotten that cheap yet, but they're getting a whole lot better, and they have proven energy usage reduction, so that saves on the electric bill. So I'm happy with the LEDs that I've used here at our place, inside and out. And in fact, I've gone to, I think, all LED flashlights now too, because they're a whole lot brighter and they use less electricity. So I'm glad that the technology has improved. America's a wonderful place. If the government stays out of the way and lets inventors and the technology of capitalism work, we get wonderful things. So forgive this mini rant, but I'll come back to you when I'm wiring up the switch. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry it's kind of dark here. I'm in the corner here, and also it's getting dark outside. So I'll try to do this the best I can to show you what I'm doing here. Alright, this is not your typical switch box for here. It's not a jiffy box or a handy box, like a metal box that's designed to be surface mount. This is one that you would recess in the wall. Since I'm not sure what I'm going to do to finish off this wall, I'm just going to use it because I don't have the other kind. It's just as safe if it's done right, and who knows, maybe I'll just box this in and it'll be fine the way it is. As you can see, I brought my 2 wires down and into the box. What you can't see, I don't know if I can't get the camera angle around there. I do have a ground wire in there, or a ground screw in there, that I've wrapped one of the bare ground wires around. And so the box is then grounded. Then my next move, let me just move these, is to take my 2 ground wires, the 2 bare wires, twist them together, and put this crimp cap on them. That seals them together so that you're carrying your ground from your power source out to your light. You'll have good grounding. I'm sorry, I have a headlamp on to try to provide light here, so if I move my head. So what you get is a good solid ground carried through because of the crimp cap. Now the final step with this, I haven't done it yet, I just have to put a hook on the end of this with my needle nose pliers, and then there is a ground screw on the switch. I'll show you the switches in just a second. It's just a simple single pole switch. So that's prepped to go for that. Now the next move is, I've taken the 2 white wires, they're the neutral wires. Again, it's bringing the power. The power is coming in on the one set of wires, and the neutral return will go back to the panel box that way. So you twist those two together with my lineman's pliers, and then I will cap them off with a wire nut. So, and then they just get tucked in the back of the box. Now what's left then is I've got two black wires. One is going to carry the power in, and one is going to carry the power to the light. The job of the switch is to either break or connect that flow of electricity. And again, with a single pole switch, with a one light switch on a device, it's relatively simple. I'm gonna, as you can see, I have the wires bent. I just have to wrap them around the screws on the switch. Now let me show you the switch here if I can. I don't know how the light's going to work with this. Maybe it'll work. Okay. This is typical single pole switch. On your lower left you can see the green ground screw. That's where the ground wire goes. If you'll notice on the switch itself it says off or on. You don't want to put the switch in upside down. I mean, it will work, but it's dumb that way. The on and off is to tell you that it's on or off. With a three-way switch you don't have that, of course. And then on the right hand side you have two brass screws. That's because they're both going to be hot at one point. What I typically like to do is bring the power in through the bottom screw and then have it go out the top screw, because it'll pass through the switch. This will work either way. If you bring the power in through the top and bring it out through the bottom, it'll still work, but it just makes more sense to do it that way. And then what happens is internally in this switch, when you flip this connects a bridge inside the switch element here, so that the power can pass through on the one screw, in through the bridge, and then out through the other screw on that wire, and then that wire carries the electricity to your fixture, in this case my outside light that I just put up. So that's a simple way to explain how a single pole switch works. I won't get into three-way switches or four-way switches in this video. They're a lot more complicated. They're still doable, but you have to think things through a little more. This is the simplest way to wire a light switch. So as I said, all I've got to do is hook my ground to there, cap off that, shove it back in, and then take my two black wires, hook them on, tighten down the screw. And then I always do an extra step when I'm doing switches. I'll tape electrical tape around the inside of the switch here, just for safety's sake. That way, if anybody should accidentally stick their fingers in where they didn't mean to, or they stick a screwdriver in, there's less chance of anybody getting a shock or shorting things out. So, and especially with a wire box, I like to do that. So that's what I've got to do, and then the switch will be finished up. So I'll be back to you with the next step. Okay, we've got the next phase of this job done now. Let me see if I can zoom in here and still be in focus. There we go. Okay, this is a PVC or other, I forget what other kind of name for the plastic box it is. It's a non-conductive box, so it's just a 4-inch round light box, fairly deep, so it'll handle a number of wires. It just nails right on. It's a new construction box, but since I don't have wall cover or ceiling covering here, I'm nailing it right onto the floor joist, so it can be dealt with that way for now. And what I've done is I've run the two wires in, the feed line that came from the switch over there from the outside. Where am I? There it is. From the outside light switch, it runs out of there, comes up through, and then comes into here. And then a second wire is coming into the box. That feeds over through there, tucks down behind the panel box, and then it's going to be tied off into a receptacle. I haven't gotten to that yet. Remember, we're working cold to hot here. So basically I've got two sets of wires in here. I have already twisted and crimp capped the ground wire, as you can see. And again, now I'm putting another porcelain here, so I don't have a ground to attach it to, but I've left the pigtail on there. I'll tuck that up in the box in case I change to a different fixture later. Now, let me just show you, I'm using a different kind of porcelain here. This is actually, oops, hopefully you can see this. Wait a minute, let me get adjusted here a little better. Doing things one-handed is no fun, but don't have an expensive camera rig. Okay, this is also, I'll turn this way, see better. This is also a porcelain fixture. You can see the light socket goes there. It is also has the switch right in the fixture. It's a pull chain, and it has an added feature of having a side receptacle. It's only a 2-prong, and I won't be using that probably, but they do make them like this for rough work applications. And the way this works is it's similar to the other one, except they put the switch, that little black square there in the middle, the light switch is right inside the fixture. So to turn the light on and off, obviously all you do is you pull the chain, and that works just like a toggle switch, so, or similar to, I should say. Now, because I already have 2 wires in there, instead of trying to wrap them both around these screws, what I've done is I put 2 little wire pigtails on there, black to the brass and white to the silver, and I'll just twist these with those 2 sets of wires and mount it that way. If you look up there, you can see, like I said, I've got the whites and the black, so I'll just twist. I'll have 3 strands twisted together when it's done, wire nutted, and then tuck it all up in, and then that will be wired. Now, this is a simple, it's an older one. I'm recycling here. You can see it's a little dirty. I've used it other places. I think it was in my drawer with my supplies, so I'm going to make use of it. But this will work out here, since I don't need light in this room very often. I don't need a wall switch. It's not a good place to put a wall switch really anywhere in this room. There isn't right now. So I'll put this up. This will be good for lighting for now until I get around to fully remodeling this part of the porch, and I'll put probably a better fixture in at that point. But this will be safe and provide enough light, and it's you know, something that's been around for a long time, these porcelain pull chains. In the old days, a lot of people had these in their rooms. They didn't have wall switches. You just walk into the middle of the room and pull the string, and that turned the light on. So I'm going to make use of it here. So now I wanted to mention just briefly here, normally when you're going to wire a light switch or a light fixture like this in the ceiling, if you're doing remodeling, I'll tell you what you may run into, and then I'll tell you the new code on this. Typically, what you'll find in something like this, if it was in the middle of a run, is you'd find 3 sets of wires in the box. You have your power feed coming in, your power feed going back out to the next either light or receptacle or whatever other device. In this case, it's a switch that goes to another light. And then your third set would be a set of wires to carry power down to the switch for this light. It's the term is called a switch leg, and that would take power up and down on the two wires for a single pole. If it was, and you'd still only have a 2-wire here. Even if you were bringing it down to more than one switch, you wouldn't put a 3-wire in your box here. That's the 3-way, and I won't get into that now. So if you're doing some changing and you find a configuration like that in a box, 3 sets of wires, the most common configuration that's been done there is 1 set of wires is power in, 1 set of wires is power out, and the third set is to take power down to the wall switch. In a case like that, the white wire that's going down to the wall switch is not a white neutral. It is actually a traveler that's hot, that's carrying power either up or down. So you just have to be a little careful about that. In this case here, what you'll see is 2 of the wires will be tied off. I'm sorry, no, yeah, they would be tied off and also tied to the white of the light fixture. So that's carrying the neutral up to the box here, to the light fixture, and to the next device on the run. So that's what you would normally see. and then there's another white wire, like I said, that won't be tied in. It'll be tied in with the blacks, because it's not all the blacks, but it's split up, because that's taking power down to the light. So that's what you might run into. Now, my understanding is they've changed the National Electrical Code to say that you shouldn't power the light fixture. Power should come into the wall switch. So if that's the case, then if you're doing new work, or it's a recent job that was done, or you ran into an electrician who preferred to do it that way. I mean, I've seen guys do it that way too. It depends what's easier. What you'll typically see is one wire in the box tied off to the fixture, or possibly two if there's a second light fixture that's operated by that same switch. You might see like a feed out to another switch, or to another light fixture, to another box, so that it can be powered with the same switch. The power will come into the switch, it'll be broken in the switch, the white will travel up here, the whites will be all tied off here and pass on. But you wouldn't have that white wire that's actually a hot line taking power to and from the switch if it's done that way. And I think that's why they changed the electrical code, for safety's sake, because that way you know you're not accidentally going to be trying to tie a white wire that's hot in with white wires that are neutral. Again, I don't know for sure, but I think that's the difference. So now here, obviously, I don't have a light switch. I'm bringing power into here and back out of there because I'm using the porcelain pull chain. So that's still legal code-wise, because I'm not dropping power down to a switch. So I'm just doing it this way, like I said, because I'm using that porcelain. But if you get into a situation like that, I just want you to be aware of what you might find in your box, your light box in the ceiling, or if you have a wall sconce or something like that. So anything that you're going to control with the switch. So that's what you need to be aware of. And also, if you're going to do construction, that you're supposed to, as I said, bring your power to the switch first, not to the light box, and drop it down to the switch secondarily. So at any rate, I'm going to put this porcelain pull chain in, and then I just have to tie the other end of that feed line into the receptacle that's already here in the room that's hot. Again, I'll turn the power off to that breaker first, and then pull it out and tie it in, and then the job will be done. So I'll come back to you with the final look, and we'll see where we go from there. Thank you for watching. Okay, that was the receptacle that I drew power from. You can see the yellow wire right there. As you can see, I turned the power back on, and I have my plug tester in there, and it's showing that it is still properly wired, properly grounded. I can close my panel box now because power is on. And we come first here to our pull chain. Yes, we do have power. No problem. And this LED will be plenty of light for this room. I'll probably put a new string on there. That's an old one. It's not the greatest, but it'll do the job. So that works. And then we come over here to our light switch that we switched. And if you look out there, there you go. We also have power to that switch out there. So, project is now complete. Everything is safely wired. Everything works properly. Again, it wasn't a major electrical project, but it's one that was necessary for here, and I hope it gave you a few decent tips as far as doing minor electrical work on your property, either repairs or adding new things or what have you. So again, as I always say, please be safe no matter what you're doing. Always work cold to hot. Make sure your power is off, that you're not going near anything that is live until you make after you make your final connection, and then you can turn your breaker back on and make sure that it works. So that's again what I did here. And I've got to get a cover, a switch cover for that yet. I'll throw one of those on there, that's not a problem. But again, my pull chain works and it's oh sorry, I didn't mean to blind anybody. I have plenty of light. I don't know if I mentioned, I thought I did earlier on, but with the PVC box like this, you don't need a grounding screw. You don't have to ground it, obviously, because it's non-conductive. So if you wondered why I didn't do that step in this box, it's not necessary. There's no place to really put one. It's only in a metal box that you need the grounding screw. So at any rate, I'm not worried about that receptacle there on this side. I'm not going to use that, so because it's only a two-prong, it would do for certain light things, but I don't need it because, as I said, I already have a receptacle in this room, and it's a small storage room on the front, on the enclosed porch, so I don't need more receptacles in here. That's more than what I would ever probably use in here. So at any rate, this project is now complete. We've added more lights to the house, more power to a section of the house where there wasn't any functioning. So we are now complete, and I want to thank everybody for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and tell your friends about country living on a shoestring. Thanks again, folks.